Well, all
Thank
right,
you.
definitely looking forward to this one. Welcome. We're gonna be hopping into draft here in just a second. But Shells, what do you think? Got any contested picks, hot secrets that you might know about the upcoming draft?
Oh yeah, we're looking at a very exciting game here between Zenigma Eclipse and Capedogs. I think the biggest thing that catches my eye is the bot lane for Zenigma, Tonic, and Fifi. Do you love me? Ran two games just this past the past game of Senna Cho'Gath in the bot. That is kind of a throwback to the last season, but it is still a very exciting kind of a matchup there. And we've seen crazy builds for Senna. We've seen the tank builds. We've seen the crazy just RFC with the Rage Blade, everything out under the sun. There's now a new build with Sunderer that I definitely want to see with this Senna here. So my eyes are definitely looking at how if we do go back to that Senna Cho'Gath that we saw bring success just last night, I believe, in a rescheduled game.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about the top side too. There's a really interesting dynamic over working up in the top lane where you have Capedogs Unleashed who'd like to run sort of Juggernaut tank style, and then on the other side of Zenigma, you have a group of champions that are very much more conditioned towards that split pushing 1-4 or even a 1-3-1 style with the Jack set Camille coming in for Winterfresh. So some very interesting possibilities coming out here in this next draft, and I'm really looking forward to see what either of these teams are going to be picking towards here in just a little bit.
Yeah, and like you just mentioned, I feel like a lot of these games do come down to how the junglers play and how we see the interaction where they pass early. I definitely believe that, like you just said, with the Jax, the Camille, and even the set to a certain degree, although the Wukong is still in play with Winterfresh, if you are able to accelerate him in lane, it can cause some really big trouble for a guy like Daze, who does play a Silas, which Silas is a good champ, but in lane, it's not the greatest of champs. Does play that Lee Sin quite a bit as well, so got to worry about that. But I think strong early attention to Winterfresh from Zen Gerardin can definitely get this Zenigma team up there. And this is gonna be a very strong, balanced matchup between two teams who are battling in that middle-ish range for who can I guess pull themselves up from mediocrity to actually being one of the powerhouses or lower end top tier powerhouses in the light league.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really tough for them to play towards that top side. You have Pallycraft who really likes to favor those early game junglers as well. He loves his Zenzal, loves his Kha'Zix. Really expecting to see him break out one of those level 3 kind of earlier game king champions. On the other side, Zen, he's not exactly a jungle main. He doesn't really play a lot of he tends to favor the farm heavy junglers, which aren't super conducive to running an aggressive top side early game. So interested to see how that pans out. I definitely keep an eye on how that pick will end up affecting bot lane as well, because really it's just going to come down to which side of the map do these teams want to play. And if they end up playing towards that 1-3-1 or that 1-4, they could have success in breaking up the typical team fight scaling comp that Capedogs and Leash likes to run.
Yeah, Kato is like one of those scaling comps. But I mean, Enigma also has, like I said, the Senna, the Vayne. I believe Tonic has almost 150 games on that Vayne himself. Does love that Kaisa as well, and you can definitely you have options if you are Enigma Eclipse. You can run toward your top side. You can go toward your bot side and help them out and help them get ahead even earlier. But we've seen a few players who go for that Morg in the jungle, that Diana, who do go ahead and get these early ganks in. Look, I'll tell you one thing. We fight early. We fight often here in the light league. We maybe not the most maybe not the most meta of decisions, or maybe not the most optimal of choices. But we're gonna fight. We're gonna dive early and often.
I'm going to point out that these two teams both play the engaged supports. So the two supports of these teams kind of share a champion pool. It's Maokai, Leona, and Nautilus, and then followed up with two enchanters with Seraphine and Lulu. So I could really interested to see some like very either early support bans and then a lot of priority on that support pick. But also, if both teams are running engaged supports, like you said, very scrappy fighting coming up.
Yeah, very scrappy. There is some potential to go ahead and try to get that priority for those early dragon stacking. But for what I'm looking at here, like you mentioned, Palcraft not really or no, Zen not really a natural there. I think I would try to go ahead and get some of these junglers out, especially if you can look at Zen, maybe even Winterfresh in the top lane, like we mentioned, Jax and that Camille. If you can get those kind of champions off the board, so you don't have to worry about getting your whole top side split away while you're looking at dragons, or your whole bot side being just having all this pressure on it while you're looking at Baron and setting up your vision there. If you can actually make it so that the games are 5v5s, or you have a better like a 4-1 where you have a better, I guess, you have less attention on the opposite side of the map away from where all the action is. You can bring the game to you and maybe allow yourself to scale it a little bit better and not have to stretch yourself and your resources a lot thinner than you would with a Jax or Camille on the board.
So talking from a very overall standpoint, is there a team comp they'd like to see each of these teams run that they might be more specialized in? Just like a generic style of like dive or the 1-3-1 split push or just running in the 4-1, something like that, with like a dragon focus. What do you think is kind of coming up here in this next match?
Well, for Zenigma, I'm definitely thinking about a 1-3-1 here. They're not gonna. I don't see them running too much of a dive comp here. They can if they bring the Camille out, but Camille is, you think about Camille as a split push kind of comp. You think about her as a split push. Now she can dive if you go with Camille top and you go with Zen running that Diana and things like that. Maybe you want to even throw the Cho'Gath if he wants to. I mean, he's not gonna be roaming. He's playing the actual AD carry there, but you can do a few things with this Enigma. This Enigma composition here for Capedogs. I want them to stay with a. I want to see them on a more scaling kind of competition here. Now, the Audacious does play a few champs that I don't like. He likes to play some of these more utility-based AD carries. I'm not a big fan of Ashe, not a big fan of Jhin. Those are some of his strongest champions so far. So I understand where their quality and what they bring to the table is. But for me, when I see AD carry, I want to see someone who can take over a game themselves and does not need a ton of attention and resources poured into them in the first 10, 15 minutes to become an actual champion for the mid game.
Of course, I mean, when you run that 1-3-1 comp, it's kind of something that it's a trade-off and a sacrifice they're making, willing to play that weak side bot lane so that you can enable your top laners and solo laners. But of course, yeah, like you said, Ashe not very conducive, or Ashe and Jhin really. You've seen the clips on Twitch and YouTube of just an Ashe trying to take down a heavy tank target with a ton of armor and just doing 0 damage per auto, ends up killing herself before she actually kills the tank in a few cases. So something to watch out for there, especially considering Capedogs Unleashed does like to run these tanks top lane. Could end up seeing them kind of go towards that double tank composition and really abuse the fact that they don't have a way to take down these heavy armored targets.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they decide to go about that. But it looks like we are getting right into the draft right now with our first band coming in right now. It's going to be the Lee Sin from Zenigma, making sure that we don't see a daze on that champion that can be extremely oppressive in the top lane.
Yeah, Daze has been absolutely spamming that lately too, so no surprise there to see that one get taken away. Lee Sin, very powerful pick. And of course, here we go. As what we talked about it earlier, one of the split pushers getting taken out here for Capedogs Unleashed.
No, no, no. We're getting rid of all the top laners right here. Our first three bands are top laners. This Akali could be a top laner, but that's more likely a ban toward war based Justin there. He does play that Akali in solo queue. I like that ban a little bit, but yeah, these split pushers, these top laners that are very oppressive in lane are going to be taken away from both sides, and the Kha'Zix, like you mentioned, will be taken away from our guy Palicraft here.
Yeah, keep in mind they have that first pick as well, so I would not be surprised to see them kind of go for that pseudo ban with the first pick, looking to take away both the Kha'Zix and the Xin Zhao here from Palicraft.
We'll have to see here. He does play a pretty good Rammus, although I don't know if that is actually in Zen's wheelhouse here. We'll have to see what he goes for. I do expect to see a jungler first, though. Would not be surprised to see a jungler first.
Gonna be very contested here. Oh, but actually Tristana, and this is something that we didn't cover earlier, but there is a possibility we could see the flex pick here between mid and bot lane. Both of these two players on the side of Zenigma have been playing that champion recently.
And she is very strong in both those roles, especially in the mid lane. But I mean, honestly, Halo Blaze Tristana is a monster wherever you put her. If you can pilot the champion right, she can take over a game. She can bring you back from huge deficits in the late game. She is one of the best, not one of the best, but a very good insurance policy here for Enigma. And the answer is in Xin Zhao and Lulu, a favorite pick here of Palicraft. And Lulu, I think one of the, I don't know, just one of the most oppressive, one of the most annoying champions in the game right now. Has a lot of utility for her team, able to have so much playmaking ability on this Yordle. It's going to be a very, very strong power pick here for Hayes Talon.
And I absolutely love the Lulu as well. Looking at this dive comp where you have the Tristana and Leona already jumping in, if you have the Lulu there to just instantly silence and just disable that attempted at a what's the word, proactive play. Lulu is so good at shutting that kind of stuff down. With a Xin Zhao as well, if Xin Zhao ends up getting an early lead, you can really enable that pick to just chase down targets like crazy in the mid game.
He certainly can, and we do see that we're going to get both the Leona and the Morgana for Zenigma here. The Morgana obviously going in the jungle here. This is a pretty strong pick for Zen right now. So I'm really liking this right here. It gives him some chances to even enable a little bit more of those dive capabilities. You can get someone to just get locked down right there. You have a good chance to just to free hit on them, get that pool going. So I like this Morgana. Definitely want to see what is going to be the mid laner here. What the mid jungle duel is going to be. Will it be this is Tristana? That could be a pretty strong 2v2. But we do see the Jinx get locked in for Capedogs. Lulu and Jinx in lane. This is going to be a very, very tough lane for Zenigma.
Yeah, so immediately as well here in the ban phase, looking at the Fiora, if you're locking in the Xin Zhao, you don't really have a super hard engage. You do have the long range engage if something you can hit that spear, right? But it's very, very hard to really force something in the mid lane, especially letting that split push. So wise choice to ban away one of the strongest split pushers in the game, really isolate the top laner, kind of deny the ability to take over that 1v1 and just take over an entire side of the map. Really like how this looks so far.
And we see on the other side a Kale and a Mordekaiser ban. That's going to be 4 bans targeted at Days here. So you already know he's going to be a very strong champion, a very strong player for this Capedogs team. But we do see the Cho'Gath taken away here. Cho'Gath in the top lane for who I'm going to assume is going to be Days right here. This isn't a bad pickup right here. I like what Cho'Gath brings. The Stomp and Chomp is one of my favorite combos in the game. And when he has that Feast as well. So I mean, we have the Feast. That is a second smite you can use for being on objectives. It's a little bit more of a bit of insurance in the late game that can help you ensure that you do get these objectives here.
Yeah, absolutely love the pickup. Wukong locked into as the answer to that top side will be the blind pick mid here and the counter pick to follow it up from Capedogs. But I want to talk about really quickly about the Wukong versus Cho'Gath matchup. Zenigma has developed here a really, really strong team fight composition. If they can find the fight. Oh, and is here to follow it up will make it just even stronger. But like I said, if you can find the fights here, force 5v5s constantly, this is a team comp that's going to be really hard for them to beat. They don't have a split pusher to split up the map. They're not going to be able to force anyone topside. This is going to be a really strong 5 versus 5 composition here from Zenigma.
Yeah, with a Wukong flank into heavy DPS from 2 champions that scale extraordinarily well with Tristana and that Azir, one pumping out that physical damage, the other doing that magic damage. It's going to be very, very hard to get away from them. And like you have so many ways to not only engage onto Capedogs, but to bring them into you. You have the Azir wall. You can go ahead and lock them down with either Leona or Morgana with the Dark Binding or the Solar Flare. There's just ways to get on top of Capedogs in any way you want to get it. And Wukong saying, okay, I can just roll on the backside. There isn't that much of a front line if Wukong does go for the flank, but with the amount of damage and CC that Tristana, Leona, Morgana, and Azir push out, you don't have to worry about a front line for all that often, for all that long, because you have so many tools in your belt to make things work in these 5v5s.
Something I'm another Xin Zhao, almost one trick. So I can kind of relate to Polycraft here. The Xin Zhao into Morgana matchup is tough. Xin Zhao really has one move and it's to dash you in a straight line, and Morgana has one move that responds very well to being dashed in a straight line, which is that binding. So very easy target for her to lock up. Also clears the jungle just a little bit faster than Xin Zhao, so if Xin Zhao wants to go for the full clear, he's actually going to be at a disadvantage. So he's really forced into kind of that playstyle of looking for an early gank, looking for an early duel, and he has to avoid the Morgana in most cases.
Yeah, definitely will have to do that. But what I see right here is when I said Zenigma has all these great ultimates and all these great tools in their belt, the one thing you don't like to see when you have all these tools is a Silas picked R5. I mean, you look at the Solar Flare, you look at the Cyclone, look at the Azir. I mean, there are so many very great playmaking tools for Zenigma, but those same tools can be used by this Silas here, piloted by Warbase Justin. So I'm looking, by Sirius for Y. So I'm looking directly at this. This is a strong pick here for Capedogs. Say, okay, you built a composition that works very well. Not quite a press R comp, but you have 3 of your 4 of your 5 actually champions have really great ultimates, and our Silas can take away all of those. This is gonna be pretty interesting to see how these two teams position around objectives, vision control, and how well Warbase Justin can use his R and his target to go ahead and make plays for Capedogs into a comp that does look to be just a slightly bit better than their own.
Yeah, I mean, it's really also going to come down to a lot of vision plays this game. You know, can Zenigma deny enough vision to really allow for the Wukong to flank? Wukong doesn't have that long of an engage range, and with the disengage provided by a Lulu, a Cho'Gath, and of course, that Zen's ultimate if needed, there's not a lot of options to just run straight at this team for either of these groups. It's really going to come down to can they find flank angles, deny the right vision, and then also is your bot lane going to be far enough ahead to really do the DPS needed to take down this team? There's a ton of sustain in that Cho'Gath and Sylas.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, there's a really good just heal reduction value here. Lord Doms is going to be very great for this Tristana. But the thing about Lulu is if you do use that polymorph on a Wukong, that's a very strong use of the polymorph. But now you can't use it on one of the other champions coming into you, like the Leona, like maybe even if you do see the Azir come a little bit closer. He has very great range, but while you do get a good chance at using that polymorph on one target, it does take it down from a couple other targets who can be not as strong, but effective enough coming into your team and giving them the chance to use their whole rotation on your squad. So I think, like you mentioned, vision and I guess target selection will be the name of the game here for Capedogs. I definitely like this Jinx pickup, like you mentioned, which bot lane can be ahead. I think both these comps, if their bot lane is even, they're doing just fine. But both the Jinx and Tristana have a good chance at just scaling up well enough so that if they're behind, they can still have a good shot at getting back into the game. They both have the supports available to them to help them and enable them to still be in a good position enough to be a relevant champion in the game, even if they are behind at the 20-minute mark.
It definitely look early game here for that Zinzao to be heading towards that bot lane. Tristana, just not really any choice. Is just going to be forced to push out this lane with that passive. Jinx and Lulu, of course, on the receiving end of that, will be sitting pretty far back, looking to avoid getting engaged on any kind of gank setup that Leona can create here. So keep an eye on these early game junglers and check their pathing, as it's going to become very, very important here in the early phases of this game.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if both of these junglers path bot side. We have seen some early game Morgana dive set up here. I wouldn't really expect that, but I also wouldn't be too surprised to see a Jinx and Lulu push this lane out. We have seen some Tristanas actually get pushed in by even just Ash Leona lanes sometimes. So I actually expect to see Tristana Leona push this lane out, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jinx were able to do that. I think that the mid lane matchup, if we moved our attention to there, I don't expect to see too much crazy action there. These two want to scale. I think Azir will have a slightly better late game than this Sylas, but my eyes are definitely on the bot lane for sure. I mean, without having one of these crazy split pushers in the Jax or the Camille here for Zenigma, Wukong isn't that. That's not how his role is going to be in this team. I definitely am looking at these 5v5s and these skirmishes at around mid game. I'm looking at the bot lane to see who gets ahead early enough, and if they can turn that into objectives and not allow the other side to get enough to scale back up. Because there's always going to be a shot for this Jinx or Tristana to catch up with a triple at any moment past 20-25 minutes and become even stronger than their counterpart.
Yeah, really got to watch out for Jinx. She just tends to flip games on her head. So really looking to at Yoda to deal the damage here. But one thing we haven't talked about yet is that the possibility that Sears for Y is actually taking the Cho'Gath here, and Daze is actually opted to take the Sylas into top lane. So a little bit of a different style. Haven't actually seen Daze on the Sylas, I don't think yet. And Sears for Y taking the Cho'Gath mid, definitely just looking to probably sustain through this lane, turn it into a bit of a farm lane. Very hard to get any gank set up onto an Azir. He just plays so far back and you're in that melee matchup.
Yeah, if this is the lock in, I think we have a rule about not swapping champs after locking in with the in the actual client. So if this is the Cho'Gath versus the Zero lane, you're absorbing pressure. This is all about absorbing pressure and allowing yourself to scale up, like you mentioned. Now, Sylas into Wukong could be a little bit more interesting of a matchup. I wouldn't mind possibly seeing Zen path top side for this matchup here. Definitely want to. I mean, I think that if Tristana and Leona have that push, it won't really matter. But I wouldn't mind seeing Wukong get some attention and maybe get some help into this Sylas and get Wukong ahead earlier on, so you can have a one TP advantage, and then two, the ability to TP to go ahead and make a move bot side to help secure second dragon and maybe even get some more kills for himself.
Yeah, definitely interesting game coming up. I really like the swap up there. Is again, like you said, the top lane matchup just became so much more volatile and so much more interesting.
Yeah, and volatility is the name of the game here in the light league. I want to see some early fighting. I definitely want to see the action come through here. I said my eyes were squarely set on the bot lane, and they still are. But when I see this Silas go top against the Wukong, I definitely want to see maybe Zen try to punish this a little bit. Maybe try to get this Wukong ahead. And if Wukong, as your sole frontliner, is able to get an advantage for themselves, then you have a very good shot at making things work for you as the game does move on.
Do you believe we are about at the time where we can hop into spectator? So I think we'll be throwing it over to that desk in just a second here. Thank you for tuning in with the draft. Stay tuned for the League of Legends as we jump on into this first match.
Can we bring to fall the giants? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Excellency Light League. We've got a great match here between Zenigma versus Capedogs, the first game of 3. You've heard it broken down for an extended period here from Shells and both Soulpin, respectively. But Dunzy, who do you really think is going to win?
You know what? I put my money where my mouth wasn't. I told Vidi in the Twitch chat, go for Capedogs. When I actually went to vote, for some reason I was drawn to Zenigma. So I think I am the top voter for Zenigma tonight. Let's go Zenigma game 1. Even though I have Capedogs, power rank number 2. This comp, besides the solo lanes, I think they did it really, really well. The Tristana, Leona, and the bot lane is where I'm going to be focused. I know Shells had his eye down there as well. Man, inject this Tristana into my veins. Tonic 136. He's who I'm going to be looking at.
Well, I think on the other end of the plate, I'll be on the reins of Yodacious this time. I personally think the Jinx has a lot more potential to scale up, but also find a lot of peel with the success between what is Hades, Talon's Lulu, or some of the mega fronts you got on Sirius for Y and Daze if he goes in at any given point. So personally, I'm a little bit more Capedogs favorite, and plus these guys have shown success here in these last couple of weeks, not only taking out Lotus White in, I believe, week 3, but also what was last week their success they found against CB Clockwork.
For sure, and that's part of the reason why I think I had Capedogs ranked higher than any other Light League cast member. So I do believe in these guys. They have shown legitimate improvement, particularly from Palicraft, who was spotted on the blue buff. They'll know that the Xin Zhao is starting on the bot side here, and we'll see what Zenigma can do to combat this new and improved Pally on that Xin Zhao.
Well, hopefully it's enough to stop his hardcore aggression that we've seen him play through time and time again. Notably, it does have to find success within that kind of first 10-minute period, or the Zen really does fall off. But speaking of finding success, level 2 advantage is in favor of Tonic and Fifi for the time being in that wave. So they're going to be playing it pretty aggressive into the face here of Capedogs until I would say around that 6th period where Yodacious and Hades Town get a little bit more safety.
Yeah, and we do see a first gank on the mid lane here. Warboss Justin is able to get out relatively easily, and that's because they had extremely good vision on the side of Zenigma placed. They had a chicken ward, which had already died now, but they knew that Xin Zhao had not made his way up to the top half, and you see that ward on the bottom half of the river for Warboss Justin, so he knew where Pally was at all times, felt safe, able to push in that lane, and it was a failed first gank for Pally.
Well, bit of a shame, but sadly no flash or die at any given point in any of that transaction there off of Pally's gank. So hopefully that's something for them to play around with a little bit later here. But across the board, relatively a state of lull. Everyone's just looking to scale, and scale is the name of the game in my opinion.
Definitely. I mean, across the board, you mentioned that you like Capedog scaling, but what are we seeing here? Oh, nothing yet.
Just as I make the point that everything seems to be so stable, we see some auto attacks, and Boss Justin doesn't even have to flash there.
Yeah, a nice sidestep. A little bit too far there for Sirius for Y. It is hard. It's early right now. The Cho'Gath gets his shoving, and he might be able to find a nice reset soon. But here comes a sneaky gank from Zenigma. If he can avoid those two... Oh, no, he's spotted out.
And the minute he's spotted out there, while he might not even know it, he's going to make the apparent move to go for that back. But Pally now, over on the side here, possibly looking for a dive once this wave crashes. Definitely
I don't like
within
it,
his
Zephyr.
Right.
No mana on Cho.
There is no mana on Cho. Pally goes in, and that's a big flash there to expend from Warboss Justin into the Raptor Pit.
Yeah, Warboss possibly could have just dashed out. I'm not sure if his cooldowns were down there, but he is playing it safe. There's no death here yet. We're still waiting on first blood. Lanes are kind of neutralizing between bot and mid lane. You see the giant CS lead for Sirius for Y right now because of all that jungle attention he has received. Pally very active in the early game, and the bot lane themselves are trying to mitigate that CS differential in the mid lane by having a little bit of a wave advantage themselves.
Well, we'll see how the aggression continues. One thing we didn't point out is now that that flash is down here for Warboss Justin, there's a little bit more emphasis towards looking towards this mid lane. We've discussed, as you point out, how aggressive Pally is, but on the lick of the nose there, finding that Pally is on that top side, spotting his presence off of that wave. You see the rotation immediately here from Zenigma to take first Drake. So pretty simple.
Yeah, I do like this from Zenigma. They found advantages. I am a little bit disappointed by Sirius for why he had such a massive advantage as far as lane tempo, got that shoved in, but instead he kind of greeted for an extra half wave, and he's going to have to use his TP anyway. They weren't able to keep up tempo. Pallycraft, you know, he does burn that summoner in the mid lane, but that tempo where he used and he went up to the top side ends up giving up that first Drake. So Zenigma are being very opportunistic right now, and despite kind of having a little bit of a less lane prio in the early game, have found that first Drake anyway.
Right, and that's kind of where we saw the trades with those laners go up the place that they did with the Cho and Sylas respectively. It definitely gives them that lane to lane advantage the way they want to play it out. But either way, I will say first Drake taken, pressure now in the hands here of Zenigma. Capedogs, they got to step up the pace, and I think they've got plenty of time to do it. You still got the Mega Flash down on Warboss Justin. Pally can make a rotation at any given point, but the vision has been absolutely on point here for Zenigma. No one's finding any major gank because everything is completely lit up across the board.
Yeah, they're very methodical right now, and you mentioned scaling a little bit earlier.
I did.
And
it was a word.
You said that Capedogs has a good scaling behind the scenes. I mean, I'm looking at Azir and late game Tristana. That's a really scary backline for me for Zenigma right now. I know the Jinx is ultra efficient with a Lulu. Sylas always really deadly as well, but there's just all across the map for both sides. Zenigma playing it safe and calm. I'm going to ask you, Zephyr, kind of in memory of Hickory, who's left us this broadcast. We now have Sulpin. He liked to play a game with Shells called Where's First Blood Going to Be? I don't know if that's what it's called, but where do you think we're going to find First Blood this game?
At this point, it's got to be towards this top side as we see both junglers come through. Cyclone expended out early here, unable to get second proc off Pally, but it does find its way onto Daze. Winterfresh going down as a result, though. Zen forced to expend Flash, but the dash comes over the wall here from Pally, and as they approach the bush there, a good Dark Binding is going to set the route for his escape. It's one kill in favor here of Capedogs.
Kind of set you up perfectly there for that one. That's a flash and a die. Oh, just kidding, not a flash and a die. Winterfresh never used his flash. We are able to see that an aggressive Pallycraft finally find that first blood and get that. Oh my goodness, serious for why not the wrong person?
Didn't quite land that feast there, Dunsey. I will say that's gotta feel so bad. He set up absolutely perfectly. It was the flash whiff, and see, he still gains the feast stack, but it's not quite the one he wanted. I will say, before we get too far away from it, though, let's take a look at that last replay to see how that first blood came to be.
Yeah, here we go. It was beautifully set up just by Pally's aggression. He's hidden in the bush right now, and so he gets the jump on Winterfresh. Despite Cyclone being available, you have Sylas, who just is also hitting this massive power spike, and they're able to find that first kill. I know they are able to follow Zen as well, but a nice Spiny is going to take him out here. Just Pallycraft finding those pockets of vision is what I want you to point your attention to there, and just keep looking for Xin Zhao to be aggressive.
Right, and speaking of Pallycraft, he's already back towards this top side. Winterfresh, though, was aggressed on a little bit too much, so he walks out of lane a bit early before you even get to see Pally rotate back, but it plays off of your point to an absolute T. Pally is across the map now. We're seeing vision start to falter, not as strong as it was in that first 5 minutes, and Pally is having a field day taking advantage of it, and you see him now spread the wealth of that Rift Herald.
Yeah, and this is perfect timing. If they can break this turret, it'll take another wave, but they're gonna make their way towards the Drake now with Herald going down, a possible top lane turret as well. It'll stay for now, but Sylas does have teleport available across the map. They're gonna look for this air Drake to even out the dragon counter, and Capedogs with a nice lead generated so far. I like what they're doing, and it's all off the back of the Xin Zhao.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it plays to the strength that we've seen here from Palicraft. Notably, he is the highest ranked player in excellency for the side here of Capedogs. His jungle presence and just in general, his kill participation is a lot more severe than the rest of his teammates, and plus he manages to eke it out without actually finding himself in a poor position. But speaking of poor positions, Serious for Y here going to be binded out by Zenigma, stepping up. There's silence before no soul shackles can come through, but a good Emperor's Divide pushes him back. But Pally over on the side finds the return on that kill. On top side, we see the response here from Daz as Pally finishes off Zenigma. It's going to be a 2 for 2 across the board here.
I'm really impressed by Winterfresh, first of all, because that's what we saw last on the solo kill, despite dying himself, giving up that first blood. I wanted to commemorate Zen, and what we'll see in a replay here in a minute, on this really beautiful black shield. Check this out here.
Yeah, let's take a look at that replay and get a better, clear look on that mid-fight.
So they set this up. Zen gets a beautiful snipe, and it's gonna be Warboss Justin, who I was worried about because he gets into feast range instead. This black shield saves his life. He's gonna live just barely. I don't think he needed to flash there. Maybe could have played it a little bit better. But Pally, once again, where is he at? He's at the action, gonna find the retaliation. Anywhere that there's a fight, Pally will be there. You need to understand that if you're Zenigma right now, keep tabs of that Jin Zhao.
And just to kind of bring everyone back to the present here, we did see a major triple man gank on the bot side with Pally once again, and sadly they weren't able to find a successful kill onto Fifi Do You Love Me, but they were able to pull the flash at least. But once again, continues to bolster the fact that the aggression here from Capedogs is still just absolutely absurd.
Yeah, and the man with the bounty on his head is that Jin Zhao. Palicraft doing his work. I want to turn your attention to, though, to Yodacious, who is slowly and kind of quietly, because no action has gone down in the bot lane, built up a CS lead for himself despite playing in the more scale-heavy, the Enchanter lane. This Jinx and Lulu doing a nice job picking up. It was at 15 CS over Tonic on the Tristana. But we see some action here coming in the top lane.
Right, another Cyclone available as Winterfresh goes back in with the help of Zenigma. He's tanking under turret, gets a good binding off, and as the burn ticks down, it's only one more auto for a successful kill, but they don't find it. In turn, they're going to be looking to take some of these plates, get the gold advantage, but Pally's there for the return.
Yeah, man, Winterfresh has flash available. He still has Cyclone up as well. I'm not sure if that was possibly up during the fight, but they could have been more aggressive there, especially because Morgana, Zenigma was tanking the turret for Winterfresh. Could have been a kill. Instead, they're going to play it safe. That's the Zenigma way. You saw the early game. They just want to play safe and scale for the late game.
Absolutely, and they've got all the power within those solo lanes to wait it out. But speaking wait it out, Zenigma has no time for the patience and finds into a root there for Serious for Y, and he really just takes the full brunt of that damage and walks out, knowing that Warboss Justin can't even come forward to really play off of that. But back in the top lane now, Winterfresh going in deep for the kill, starts off with that initial Cyclone, gonna get the return on the double knockup. We do see Mr. Silas go golden here, but I don't think it's enough to find the escape. Winterfresh picks up another solo kill on this top side.
Yeah, the second one for Winterfresh there. He is coming online. Seeker's arm guard comes out for days, and I know he's trying to be a little bit defensive here. I feel so bad for him because that item is one of the worst gold efficient items in the game. As the feast doesn't come through again here.
It might. There it is. There's the flash feast, and this time there was no minions to dissuade the presence of it.
I really thought he was gonna miss that, Zephyr. If he could feast the turret, it would have happened.
Trash Talk Week was last week, Dunzy. That's a little bit too spicy for my taste. Give credit where credit is due. Serious for Y did find a successful solo kill in his mansion. It's hilarious because you saw the rotation from Tonic and Fifi coming up towards that mid lane. Wasn't even necessary.
Yeah, they couldn't get there in time to help Warboss Justin. I thought that the delayed flash from Cho'Gath was a little bit funny. But back to my point about Winterfresh up here in the top lane, just taking advantage, abusing this horrible item. It's not Daze's fault. It's just the item itself is so weak in its current state. Even at full stacks, one Seeker Arm Guard. Soul Shackles doesn't connect.
Just hold the thought. The man's already rooted out. He's deleted at this given point. And it actually goes over to Zen on the burn. And what a TP waste there from Sirius for Y.
Yeah, they're just abusing Daze. And before Pally became this kind of all-star jungler for Capedogs, it was Daze who was their carry. And right now, he's going to look towards the rest of his team to try and help him out this game. It's even at full stack, Zephyr. I'm trying to finish this point here. The Seeker's Arm Guard is very, very inefficient. It's like barely over 100% gold inefficient. But anyway, yeah, they're just abusing the heck out of this top lane. Love the attention that Morgana, Zenjaradon on this Morgana is giving to Winterfresh.
I will say you put Winterfresh in a great spot for the side here playing this Wukong. Now I want to see how that transitions. We're coming to that 20-minute period. Dragons are back up and available. The more contesting points like Baron are going to be in the point here. Is Winterfresh going to have enough pressure to apply further into that backline? Maybe look towards the Audacious or find a successful kill even further than that, because the comp here from Capedogs has a lot of peel to play with. And I don't know if Winterfresh, even with the successful kills, is going to have enough to work with there.
Yeah, Hey It's Talon on the Lulu will exclusively be looking to polymorph the Wukong diving in.
Oh, that's a cleanse pulled out there. Zenjaradon might pay the price, though, as a result. Crescent Guard used pretty early from Pallycraft, gets the knockup onto Fifi, and Jodacious cleans it up with those. Also sends the Super Mega Death Rock, but now Wardrops, Bustin, and Winter come in there to finish up this backline, one member at a time. Big Cyclone to find the knockups as Hades Talon forces the flash over the wall, but the double Cyclone fixes itself into another double kill here for Winterfresh. Hades Talon is stepped up. A Smell Immune Black Shield allows him to go a bit further, and with that dash, the shield saves Hades Talon for just a little bit longer. Winterfresh doesn't care. Polymorph dive still finds the kill and still makes it out alive. Beautiful play there from Zenigma.
Yeah, and they're going to be able to stack their second Drake of the game off the back of that wonderful team fight. I thought it was going to go the way of Capedogs early on, but man, Zenigma able to turn that around.
Let's take a look once again at that dragon fight that went so wrong here for Capedogs.
Yeah, check it out. They are able to catch out, I believe it's actually the jungler Zenjaradon early on. Even though he blows the cleanse, he's going to be kind of pinched away from the side of his team coming down the river. So, it's actually Leona who gets picked off first. But I really, really thought that Capedogs had this because Silas, check it out, what ultimate he takes, the Emperor's Divide, gonna peel for his team, but it's not enough. We talked about Winterfresh, the camp that Zenjaradon has set up on the top lane, and it's paying off. The Wukong is massive. Black Shield on that guy, he is the carry. So they're making sure that they know who they want to carry the fights. You talk about the peel that Talon's trying to provide. It doesn't matter. He is able to get through the team fights right now. At 5-1, the Wukong is big.
I think it's hilarious that my point was to bring up the fact that maybe this Wukong isn't going to be able to get into that backline. Maybe the peel's too strong, and I was absolutely slapped across the face with a beautiful dive and successful Cyclone there from Winterfresh. I will say it wasn't the automatic or initial engage here from Zenigma. It was a pretty... Everything started off immediately on what was Zenjaradon getting caught out, and the rest of those cooldowns and windows from what was Capedogs were used on Zen specifically. It was Winterfresh and then Warboss Justin coming in afterwards to clean it up. But speaking of cleanup, Pallycraft looking like he's going to be the mop on this one. Crescent keeps him alive for just a little bit longer, but as he runs towards this alcove, it's not going to be for long. Dashes forward, Solar Flare with the slow, and it's going to be Tonic that picks this one up. Warboss Justin in the mid lane, though, with a good Emperor's Divide, finds the push on the Audacious, as well as that double on the Hey It's Talon.
Oh my goodness, Zephyr. Just disaster for Capedogs. And wouldn't you look at it now, the gold lead is swung to the side of Zenigma. We talked about the Azir. He really, really needs to scout, and he finally finds his first kills. In fact, it's 2 on the board for him. Murderous dive for the side of Capedogs, just awfully played. Yodacious accidentally tanks that extra turret shots. The Talon on Lulu is able to be picked up as well. And man, all across the map, Zenigma is coming alive.
Yeah, Zenigma definitely scaling to the potential that you set up for me before we even got into this game. And at this point, I'm starting to see why, but Series 4Y actually looking a little bit worse for wear. They're pushed out and Wild Growth forced to be expended onto Palicraft as Zenigma's just looking far too strong.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Capedogs could possibly do in retaliation here, because at this point the Jinx, even with the Kraken completed in her inventory, it feels like she's not able to get through these team fights quite yet. Talon can't peel for her hard enough. They just shred too quickly. I want to see a 5v5 for Capedogs before I can write off the Jinx though. They haven't played as a team. They got picked off a few times. Let me see the Jinx in action. That Drake fight was early. Now maybe a better situation to set up for what we know is a very, very scary Wukong. Capedogs have gleaned this information. Can they peel for him?
I will say, looking back towards the beginning of this game, we talk a lot about how you need to see early success on both the Zen and Daze on this, Silas. And the thing was, you saw a heavy camping presence from Zen Jaredon towards that top lane. And then on top of that, Palicraft, while he was effective in trying to find those ganks, he didn't get to the point that made him an absolute monster for the heavy engages that we now need to see here from Capedogs. So a little bit of some faltering in the early game is now starting to be a major issue later on here.
Yeah, the opposite story for Zenigma, who are, oh my goodness, Zen just
in the
binding
back here,
after binding.
2-1 with the soul shackles. He is exhausted down, but Fifi with a good solar flare makes sure that they successfully find that kill onto Hay. It's Talon. I mean, that has got to be one of the most aggressive movements from Zen in this game.
He was feeling it, man. That's a heat check. This top jungle duo, Winterfresh, Zen, Jaredon, remember their names. These champs are going to be banned out in the next draft. At least the Morgana. It's done so much work. He is absolutely on it. The Archer with the snipes coming through over and over again. This is going to be the third Drake without contestation for Zenigma. Oh!
Just barely.
Third Drake, easy peasy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, third Drake secured, finds their way onto Soul, so now they're just the one away here to keep it going for the side of Zenigma. And at this point, I mean, the presence here, we haven't really seen Capedogs really bite back, but now Series 4Y here, caught out by Winter's Fresh. He's beefy, but I don't know if he's beefy enough. He's rooted out, but the double Cyclone gets that knock up to prevent him from escaping any further. Yeah, Winter Fresh picks that one up easily.
Yeah, check it out. The Divine's Underwear. I mean, it's doing insane amounts of damage to this HP tank, shredding him. Series 4Y is supposed to be the front line. But it is just not happening, man. Wukong, I guarantee you Winterfresh is tankier than... Oh my god, again!
This is dead. This is it for here. He does get a good steal with the Shoal Shackles and that flash, but at this point, just let the bomb tick down and this man find his way to the afterlife.
Might see that one on the next flash or die. That was a good one.
Maybe.
That one would have gotten shells, for sure. He couldn't have gotten that one. Too tricky.
Oh, well, I think Shells, he was counting a little bit too much on the 15-5-5-5 play there, and at the end of the day, he wasn't really actually paying attention, so a bit of poor management on his side for a man who likes to follow the numbers usually.
Yeah, and some poor management from Capedogs' side as well. I mean, even just taking a look at the vision across the board, I see 3 pink wards all along that mid-river area for Zenigma, and instead it's Capedogs who just have a couple of wards. One near Baron that Pixel Bush is helping them out, and then the other 2 are just defensive in the red side jungle. This is Zenigma territory right now. They're able to kind of push forward. Baron, little misstep. Are they actually starting in Zephyr? They want to take a look at this. They're going to bait Capedogs to a fight here.
I don't know if this is the fight that Capedogs wants, though. Winterfresh is in a great position to go for the initial engage. Warboss Judson's gonna be the one to set it up into the Cyclone with that Emperor's Divide. Immediately deletes the 2 forward carries here for the side of Capedogs. The Audacious rooted out, and the Cleanse can't even save his life. Serious for why? Just takes it and leaves it. It's gonna be 4 kills here for the side of Zenigma, and probably the Baron too.
Oh, 100%. It would take a flash feast from Sirius for Y, which is still on the table here. Winterfresh is gonna go and kill that blast cone for himself. Make sure they're zoning off the Cho'Gath. This is well played by them.
He's going in. He is gonna take it directly to Sirius for Y and force that flash out. He does not care.
I like that even better, man. Dude.
Let's take a look back at that Baron fight and see where it might have gone wrong here for Capedogs.
And this is all Warboss Justin. He gets a massive ultimate. Hopefully we can get the feed up here for you guys. Just give us a minute. We'll work on that. But when we get to it, those ultimates coming out from Zenigma, they were able to play with vision, and you're going to keep your eye on that.
Yes, absolutely. It was the initial engage there, Emperor's Divide, to pull it back. I think the play with the combination now of Warboss Justin and Winterfresh is definitely come fully alive. And it was the one thing that I was the most worried about looking at this draft. We talked about it. These 2 lanes were something that was a bit of an oddity in my personal opinion, right? They weren't something that found a really serious win condition into their respective lanes and really did have to rely on scaling up effectively. And into the face of Palicraft, who's usually regarded as a very good early aggressive jungler, I don't know if the hope was there. But now Warboss Justin going to be forced to flash as he goes in a bit too hard.
Yeah, that was so ambitious. You know, the heat checks are coming across the entire team now for Zenigma. He got a double kill, then he got that massive team fight winning ultimate. He's like, I can do anything. Give me a black shield. But a little bit too far, a little bit of a misstep. Able to group up here in 40 seconds. There's a potential Ocean Soul. So man, here comes the fight though.
Beefy, yeah, coming in deep there with Zen on the back end to delete Talon. Palicraft throws down the Crescent, but a good Zenith Blade finds him stunned. And as that ticks down, Tonic with the immediate dash finds the kill response. And Daze goes down as well there. Whoa! Dark Binding absolutely deletes the Audacious off the back end there. 4 members down, Serious for Y once again the only one left alive here for Capedogs.
Yeah, at this point, Zenigma's gold sacks are too massive. They have reached late game. The Jinx did a ton of damage in that fight, but it was too late. They got picked off by the Wolf camp, and man, it's just Zenigma playing as a team. Even though Zen Jaredon was a little bit out of that fight to begin with, he found the binding at Wolf camp, and then the rest of Zenigma collapsed.
Winterfresh here taking it pretty far forward here. Does have to expend that flash at the end of the day, but he was able to pick up the response there on that turret and leave that inhib now completely open. So technically a win. I don't know if it was worth the expended flash, but at this point, 22-7 with the now secured Ocean Soul on their belt. I think Zenigma is willing to just kind of play around with their food here.
Man, dude, at this point, it's a formality. 7K gold lead, Ocean Soul. I believe they could just run it down a side lane, combined with the mid lane inhibitor, push those 2 at the same time, and possibly maybe a Baron to end the game. But they have won team fight after team fight. I still haven't seen a clean 5v5, and the reason why is because Zen Jaredon is so good at finding the picks with these dark bindings. It's been a problem since laning phase, where he's able to camp Daze and hit those that massive skill shot to provide a big lead to his top laner, and now it's applied in team fights as well. The transition from early game jungling to mid game team fights and now late game macro calling for Zen Jaredon is very applaudable. He's done an amazing job on this Morgana.
Absolutely. You cannot begin to describe this game without first talking about Zen through and through. And especially toward that top end, shoving what was Daze into a terrible position, preventing him from becoming that kind of late game skirmishing monster. But now Palicraft stepping up, going to be expending that Crescent immediately. Zenith goes deep there onto Hate. It's Talon as a big stun comes out with a solar flare response. Hijack as Warbots. Justin gets the double Emperor's Divide. Good shutdown comes through, but Yodacious in the back line. The Cyclone prevents him from moving any further. The rest of the team now absolutely deleted as a result, and this game looks like it's all said and done with a Zenigma victory on its way.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it early. We asked the question, can Hayat's Talon peel for Yodacious? We thought it would be possible. We thought actually that it was probable, but in fact, it is impossible. You cannot peel the monkey off of your Jinx. She was immovable. She had died instantly once that TP went through, even in a 4v5 to start the game. It is Zenigma who pushed down to the Nexus.
Zenigma finds their way to an absolute stomp of a victory, taking it in almost less than 30 minutes here for the first game of the night. And man, I had my doubts, but through and through, they made those solo lanes look clean. Big props to be held here from Zen Jaredon. I mean, this guy set up everything across the board, and it's the reason why the picks like the Wukong and the Azir got the chance to really shine the way they did.
Yeah, just impressive score lines down the board for Zenigma. Just amazing team fight or team victory for them in game one.
So with that being said, though, we're going to be throwing this one back to our desk here between Sulpan and Shells to see what their rundown is giving this incredible game one. Over to you two.
Hey guys, welcome to the Analyst Talk here with Shell and Sulpan. We're gonna break this one down, and I think the first thing you want to talk about is where the Xin Zhao, presence was really in this early game.
Yeah, that was just a tent that got pitched, I think, from both these junglers in the top side of this map. We did see the Xin Zhao just try to get, like, the plan was trying to get this Silas ahead, and it felt like that may or may not have actually been the best of options here. But still, that could have been a decent decision to make there if this Wukong wasn't just as strong as it was, and we saw Winterfresh absolutely take advantage in that lane and honestly kill any sort of pressure that was there to be provided from this from Xin Zhao and Silas when he just got kills every single time he was ganked.
Yeah, I mean, really, both these junglers focusing topside. It really just was going to come down to who's going to play these 2v2s better. And in the beginning, it really did look like the Silas Xin Zhao duo was working out. They won a couple early 2v2s, got a couple early kills, managed to get Rift Herald plates down onto the Silas and the Xin Zhao. So it really was looking like it was going in the favor of Capedogs Unleashed. But then just everything just fell apart. There was so many good turnarounds here from the Morgana in the jungle, able to find play after play, as well as working on towards that bot lane. Once it did come time to focus down these objectives, it was all Zenigma, making sure they were always there on time, rotating early, getting down vision, and the Cho'Gath was just not able to have that objective presence that you would really expect a mid lane Cho'Gath to have.
Yeah, and I want to speak on what you just said about being there on time, having presence at the objectives, and it was a little bit strange to me because we saw Sears for Y on a number of occasions. Yes, he was the Cho'Gath. He was really the only member of the team who could answer either the Azir or the Wukong in a side lane. But there were so many times we saw Sears for Y just in a side lane, not available to help out at objectives. There was one time at about the 10-minute mark where Daze got caught out in a 2v1, died, no flash, by the way. But there was a TP to try to peel for him that got used by Sears for Y. It was a wasted TP, and he stayed in the top lane just a little bit too long. We were talking off air about how he stayed for that extra half wave right before drag was up. Didn't have teleport, wasn't able to walk down in time down to that bot side river to make a move. His team was just outnumbered. That was another dragon for Zenigma Eclipse, and we just saw how a kind of questionable teleport 3 minutes earlier just ruined his team's chances of actually having presence at a very important objective. Turns out that the Dragon Soul was given up not too much later, and we saw plenty of times where Sears for Y on this Cho'Gath was on the opposite side of the map, while Zenigma Eclipse was taking an objective, and it felt like a 4v5 at a majority of these neutral objectives here.
Yeah, and it's so important when you're playing this team comp where your one tank is going to be that Cho'Gath. It's important to have that presence. You're not gonna be able to walk up and approach this long range team with the Azir. And if you do have someone who does end up walking up, and often it was either the Lulu or the Zinza, they're just gonna get jumped on. Leona jumping on every occasion she could to make sure that her team could just continue pressing forward. You saw multiple times catching out the enemy support in parts of the jungle. There was even a time in mid lane where they had Capedogs Unleashed managed to clear out all lanes. Thought they had priority everywhere, thought they had vision everywhere, but they didn't ward the river. And so they were able to come up through that, find a pick onto Lulu, and it led them to another dragon. So really it was just, I would say, an underpreparedness in vision and dragons, and that's exactly what we talked about in the pregame analysis, where if they don't have, if Zenigma has good vision denial, they're going to be able to set up really good flank engages with Wukong. Saw a couple of those. And of course, got to give a shout out to Warboss on the Azir, completely turning around a game where we thought he was out of it. Cho'Gath with a giant CS lead over him in mid lane, as well as constantly being dove by the enemy Xin Zhao, forcing his flash constantly. It wasn't looking great for Warboss, but managing to turn around with Streamer Shuffle after Streamer Shuffle, looking so effective despite an early game loss.
That's the great thing about Nazir. If you are having a bad time in lane, don't you worry. You are going to scale on up. And he did. And you always have that presence in these team fights with that shuffle, like you mentioned. Just swept them on up, 4 of them right into the team comp. And there was no way they were going to win that. Also, notably, Serious for Y was not around for that Baron fight. That was another reason you're in a 4v5 into a champion like Azir that can turn a fight with a snap of his fingers. And that just shows, that just shows how strong Zenigma Eclipse is, being where they need to be on time, drafting a comp that can help them out very strongly. And this was just a very, very convincing win for them after a couple of their lanes were having a bit of trouble early on.
And I'd really like to see, I think, a little bit of champion swaps here. I think we talked earlier thinking that Cho'Gath was going top, and I think that was the right call. If they had been able to run that Cho'Gath top lane on days, they would have been able to have a weak side top laner, Sylas in the mid lane, able to roam and make plays bot lane, and then really look to snowball a dragon lead with the early game or with an early game jungler like Xin Zhao, and of course Palikar taking a massive lead early. Unfortunately, what actually ended up happening was they had Cho'Gath snowballing in mid lane, getting lots of getting heavy early leads against the Azir, and then not able to translate that into a lead. As again, he's just a frontline presence that was forced to match split push plays, and it was never actually in the team fights when he needed to be.
And it's really tough, like you mentioned, when you only have that as your front line. You don't really have an engage for real, and you have a Jinx Lulu lane that you gave almost no attention to in the early or mid game. There's no presence from Palicraft to help out this Jinx. So, like we mentioned, we're talking off air once again. Maybe this Lulu isn't the pick for Talon. Maybe something like, I mean, his whole champ pool is like Maokai, Leona, Nautilus, Thresh. Does play some Morgana himself. Doubt that if they choose Morgana, it's going to go in the bot lane. But I mean, these hook champs, these engage champs, these champs that actually can frontline, these champs that actually can help you out a little bit more once you get to the mid to late game. Probably more his speed, probably more effective for the way Capedogs does play their game out. Now, maybe if Sears for Y had a little bit more presence at objectives, that wouldn't have mattered as much with the Lulu. But I think if you are going to pick a Jinx Lulu into a Leona Tristana lane, you might want to give that lane a little bit more attention, or honestly, any attention at all.
Yeah, I think we didn't see Zinzai go bot lane once. I think we did see Morgana down there once, but just most of the plays of this match were all happening topside. And of course, Dragon spawns, you see the team fights down there, but nothing really in the laning phase. And that's where it really is going to matter. I would, touching up again on that point where you were talking about Talon being on the Lulu, I don't want to necessarily say it was just a bad play. I would almost call it a desperation play where they're kind of looking for flanking gauges. Yeah. That's not something you want Lulu to be doing. You want Lulu kind of in the backline, peeling, making sure they can deny a dive on something like that Wukong. So I'm not sure if we can chalk that one up to his play style or just looking for crazy desperation plays in late game when you're facing down a Baroned up Ocean Soul team running down your Nexus. So tough call either way, but I do want to see some change-ups here in the draft.